Yeah, so we're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so looking at multi-platform, multi-marketplace strategies. I think we are definitely pushing the boundary of panelists a little bit here. We've got 6, but they're all perfectly placed for this conversation. So I'd like to start actually by asking the panelists just to quickly introduce themselves and maybe sort of give us an understanding of the collaboration marketplaces that you're in at the moment. So perhaps if we start down the end and we can move down.
Hi Tom and everyone. I'm Ollie Clapinson. I'm the head of engineering for our cloud voice and real-time agentic services at NTT Data. In terms of marketplaces and where we are in this world of communication, collaboration, and so on, we're an Operator Connect partner with Microsoft. We're plugged into Cisco Webex through CCP. Those are 2 of our biggest marketplace platforms, and we work with partners. You saw Mark from New Wave in the previous panel to connect to various other cloud platforms as well.
Yeah, hi Tom, hi everyone. I'm Claudia, heading the product management organization in the business organization for collaboration and communication, and we are offering as a telco different services beyond core. It is the Microsoft, it is the Zoom, it is the Cisco, and we also offering on-prem based offers so that we have the full portfolio for the customers doing the telephony and the collaboration in Germany, especially in Germany.
I'm William Rubio, the Chief Revenue Officer at CallTower. We are a managed UC and contact center provider focusing really around Microsoft, Cisco, and Zoom on the UC side and around Genesys and Five9 on the contact center side. We cover about 80 different countries and really trying to integrate a lot of key applications into those core platforms.
Matt Siemens, I'm the CEO of NUSO. We, on the collaboration side, primarily Operator Connect and Zoom. And we just announced at the DC event that we have a relationship with Zoom now over 99 countries. And then, in addition, we also still manage our own UCaaS platform and then 2 other platforms. So when we talk about multi-platform, we're about as multi-platform as it gets as we go through. And then outside of the vendor areas, then everything else is surrounded with our own IP. And so we use that to be able to increase that margin stack that oftentimes we talk a lot about in challenges or when you're moving into the collaboration space about how you actually retain that margin.
Afternoon, everyone. Paul Wakefield from Gamma. I run our enablement practice. Predominantly, we work with Cisco, particularly from a UCaaS perspective, and Microsoft from an enablement perspective. We are in conversations with lots of others as well, so we're prepared to work with anyone. I think, interestingly for us as well, where sort of Gamma comes from, is that we were sort of leading SIP provider in the UK, still are, I think. So what that means is that I've got a few million users attached to legacy PBXs and legacy technologies that kind of puts us in a fairly unique position in terms of having capability to sort of move from the sort of old world to the new world. And, you know, whoever's going to win that new world, but I'm sure we'll come on to that in a moment.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mehmet Hussein. I run the solutions engineering for bandwidth everywhere outside of the US. We are a global telecommunications provider, much as almost everyone in the room is. We have got relationships with Microsoft, Zoom, Cisco, and almost every UCaaS and CCaaS provider that is out there at the moment to varying degrees. The angle which we are looking at this from is that of there's the lots of marketplaces question and the regulatory implications question, which seems to sort of muddy the waters when you're trying to decide how to consume these services. So that's the angle and the lens that I'm looking at this through.
Well, that's a good chunk of the session done. So we'll try and move into to some of the questions. And I guess this does seem like a bit of an obvious one, but if you think back, because you're all coming at this from different angles, I think it'll be interesting to kind of know the rationale and the idea behind investing in multiple marketplaces. I locked eyes with you there, William, so I'm going to go to you first for that one, but just kind of the rationale and the thought behind going multi-marketplace.
Yeah, I think when you go back and you look at the evolution, at least of our industry overall, and you look at customers are looking for solutions, right, overall. In a lot of cases, they're working with multiple different platforms overall. It's not just a one-size-fits-all for everybody. And we started realizing that I came over to CallTower in 2013, and we started to realize that why were we forcing a customer into one single platform when a customer wants to choose? Maybe they need some type of conferencing externally, they need some internal different type of communication, and that was really the start of our go-to-market of changing really the way we worked and we operated with our customers, saying we're going to give you the different choices and we're going to give you best of breed of what's currently out there and just continue down that evolution.
Any other thoughts there?
Well, at NTT Data, we're, as well as being a global telco aggregation platform providing voice services, we're very much a GSI. We've therefore got customer accounts, and those customers are where they are. We've got to be where our customers are. So while we started with heritage in the Microsoft and Cisco worlds in particular, and obviously Teams blew up massively during the pandemic and drove a huge amount of calling plan and sort of EX type business on that platform, especially we saw. Since then, contact centers become hugely important, and increasingly we as a managed service provider in GSI, we need to be able to bring collaboration services to the customers in the platforms that they're using, where we may be providing managed network, we may be providing other managed IT services and stuff, and we need to layer the collaboration element on top of that.
One other area too is on the partner side. So it's not just in the channel, or it's not just whether or not you're providing the end user the choice, but also the channel partner the choice where their expertise actually lies and where they can actually deliver service to their end user customer as they find it. And so that's why when you offer 4, 5, 6 different options for them, they're going to find a solution that's going to fit their bespoke need of whatever the end user has.
It is on the one hand side what the customer needs, what is his demand, but also what's the infrastructure our customers have and what kind of integration possibilities and what other tools they're using, so that we are coming from the customer and looking what is the customer using, so that we will find a solution on the one hand side when they're more the enterprise. Going into the SMBs, we are serving all the different customer groups. There we need solutions that are easy to use, that have a high standard and that have a self-service possibility, so that we are serving the different customer groups in different ways.
So for me, I think it's partly because Gamma is a channel business, but I'm going to say this slightly facetiously, partly because I'm lazy. I run a very successful SIP strategy. I don't see it changing anything. It's like, 12 years ago, we had a relatively sort of small SIP business. And I quickly learned that if you took up a strategy which was connect to anyone over anything, you open up the channel, people will buy. Now, we were conformance tested with over 100 different devices, PBXs, SBCs, gateways, whatever. The world hasn't changed that much. There's probably just 5 or 6 different clouds as opposed to 50, 60 different PBXs. So you just sort of give in the channel and the end customer choice in terms of what you want. And, and it was interesting in terms of the session, why do people still buy telephony? Quality is absolutely at the top. So, telephony is still a mission-critical communication service. So when you have, credibility, pedigree, heritage within that, it's important. And whereas, why don't people buy telephony from Microsoft? Because one, they don't want to sell it. They don't want to be a regulated provider. But there are, people like us who have sold voice services for 20, 25 years and just go, you guys know what you are doing. Can I buy it from you, please?
So I'll go saying as everyone else did as well. So for us, it's a bit more boring and predictable, right? It's organic growth through customer demand. So if you imagine your typical bandwidth customer years and years ago would have been a reseller customer, someone like an 8x8, for example. And we would have sold to them and they would have sold to a customer who would have at some point done some looking, and then they would have seen that, oh, these numbers live with bandwidth, but these other numbers live with another provider. Let's go have a conversation. And then we'd have the conversation and they might raise a query like, okay, so we're using, the most typical combination we see at the moment is Genesys and Teams under one enterprise use case. So they might say, and this is a conversation I was having with Claudia immediately before this, they might say, okay, we want to swap out the Genesis for something else. In your typical paradigm, that would involve porting the numbers away from Genesis into whatever platform it's going to land on, entailing a degree of downtime and some project management services to go over the top to make sure the wheels don't fall off. In the bandwidth world, we can say, okay, as soon as your new contract with whoever you're going to for your contact center services is live and up and running, we can route traffic there immediately, we can route test numbers there immediately, your numbering estate is safe, we can have a failover in place at the same time. Then they're working with managed service providers who are providing the professional services to go and deliver the things in the offices that we've got no interest in doing at all. But then regulations comes in and terms the managed service provider as an electronic communications service provider and lumps onto them all these regulations. So for us, it becomes a necessity to ensure that our integration is deep, both across the technological stack, so making sure that we're plugged into all the platforms that are relevant, but also integrating into regulatory workflows, which is a completely different, horrible beast.
I have one addition. And when you say the quality is really crucial for our customers for the telephony, this is quality is availability and the demands for security and also sovereignty, especially in the political situation, is growing more and more. And so we are looking for offers where we can implement security or where we offer the sovereignty with special product developments that we did together with our vendors.
It's everything: security, compliance, governance. The invisible things that people just take for granted. You know, telephony is a utility. Turn on the tap, they expect it to come out, but in a way that it's clean, useful, and in the way they would accept it. It's just what you have to deliver, and because we've got 20 years of proven capability, you just got to repeat that.
I also
Paul,
think... Oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, nobody calls and says thank you to us up here, right? They only call us when there's an issue.
They call me.
Say it's working great, right?
I was just going to add that the marketplace, I think, adds something in particular about some of those individual sort of hygiene factors, the security, the governance, and stuff like that in the Microsoft space. When you're delivering services through Operator Connect, there's a seal of approval there that the customer can assume you've met a bunch of requirements. That if you're selling services through direct routing, you don't have to be necessarily achieving those things. So the marketplace gives you a seal of approval, definitely.
Can I come in on that? I think you're absolutely right, and there are a bunch of hoops that they come into. But equally, what's the latest? 108 Operator Connect partners. You know, as a customer, you go in, all right, which one? So unless you've got a physical relationship with somebody already, and you go in, I know those guys, I trust those guys, I've used those in the past. Otherwise, they're going, I do want to use telephony, and I love my Teams, but I'm not quite sure where to jump here. And again, there's professional service capability. You look at the guide people in, but it shouldn't be that difficult. So I think absolutely, and I was the one who kind of badgered Tamo to give us a badge because direct routing was the absolute Wild West. So an Operator Connect come in is brilliant, but I do wish they would have tied it down a little bit more.
So I'd be interested to know how you go about positioning each platform in your offering. Is it sort of totally led by the customer? You know, Paul, you said the more you offer, the more chance you've got of being successful, or is it ever kind of more of a sort of consultative approach where you're helping the customer get that? How do you position so many options in the portfolio?
I'll volunteer to go first. For us, it's really, really easy. It's almost 100% customer-led. We get presented with the problem either directly from the enterprise or via the MSP, and then it's ours to solve. Normally, it's one or other of the platforms that we're already integrated with or have already got a commercial wholesale relationship with, so we can leverage that to get the job done. But we are almost never in the position of advising the customer which solution to go for. We're just operationalizing it and making it work.
Yeah, I think one of the ways is actually really truly that consultative framework. So working through the channel for the most part, and then also we have a platform side which serves a few hundred service providers globally as well. So in both of those instances, having trusted advisors internally that can actually then help them become the trusted advisor to their end user or to the solutions that they want or to the product houses within their organizations to be able to make it work is important. One of the examples of that is when we're working with different solutions, you know, I mentioned we have a lot of intellectual property on top of and below kind of that collaboration and UCaaS space. And it's because we have to be able to make sure that when we offer something, we can offer it across the entire the entire swath. So a compliance recorder that both is works with the Zoom platform, with the Teams platform, with multiple UCaaS platforms, with PBXs sitting on site, being able to handle all of those things, tied in with the ribbon SBCs, all of those elements together, being able to make sure that no matter what the solution, whether it be a service provider or an end user, being able to offer those elements across that actually then go ahead and provide this complete solution.
And when Mehmet says that customer first, this is also crucial for us, but sometimes you have to help the customer to see what he needs, because he just wants to have a solution for telephony and collaboration or contact center, and he doesn't know exactly what he needs for the specific workers groups in his company, and so you have to consult him what's the best solution for him.
Yeah, I think we'll all agree that it is customer-led for the most part. But the big key that I think a lot of times during discovery or when you're taking that consultative approach is, what is your technology roadmap, Mr. Customer? Where do you see yourself in 2 to 3 years? Right? Do we need to go ahead and kind of leapfrog one step if you're going to go to a different platform and kind of rip the Band-Aid in some cases? And that sometimes is something that people don't ask. I mean, we've seen customers go from Cisco to Zoom to Microsoft, from Microsoft to back to Cisco. I mean, we've seen back and forth all over, and it's just making sure that you're matching what that customer's going to do in 2 to 3 years that a lot of people forget. And it could be for compliance, from geographic restrictions and regulatory. It could be for a host of different things.
I was going to say, as much as I would love to violently agree with the panel, I'll probably differentiate ourselves slightly differently, only because we've got a channel base of around 1,500 partners, and you cannot be customer-led. Some of those partners will be Microsoft CSPs, will be MSPs. Some of them will be Mitel houses. They don't have a clue in terms of what's going to happen to the cloud platforms. So I've got 2 customers. I've got the end user customer who's actually consuming the underlying UCaaS application, but then I've got the partner who's selling to them, and they should be absolutely led by the customer. But in the meantime, there will be specialisms, capabilities within that sort of channel ecosystem that I've got to basically deliver choice to. So that is why I sort of position slightly differently.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting, often get questions from analysts and from private equity and investors about, why don't you just focus on one thing and just do it really, really well, right? And that's part of that conversation that you have to explain not only to them but also to the customer, why haven't you done that? It's because often you'll have a customer that today may be on a platform that serves their needs, and they're going ahead and putting a tender out, and they're having you tick off all the boxes of things that they're never going to use, but they might want to someday. And being able to have that defensive position, be able to also say, I've got 4 things for you to choose from, 5 things in this category, gives a capability for the partner to position themselves as well as the end user to feel comfortable that they're future-proof.
Okay, so I think we have gone quite Slido heavy this event. It's not just because Cisco's here, but we've got another one here. It's probably not as funny as the word cloud ones, but it would be interesting to know kind of how many platforms you in the audience are integrated with at the moment. So we'll come back to that shortly. But I wondered if we could sort of turn the attention to the platform vendors. Is there anything you think they should be doing to help you a bit more with the enablement marketplaces?
Can we make more money, please?
Make it easy. Make it easy. Give support and automation support. To integrate with our systems that we have, and to give support also for our operations teams, that they are enabled and that also our salespeople are really good enabled.
From our perspective, I wish they would all realize that we're dealing in the realm of utility and have less walled gardens. So if they made it easier for enterprises to consume parallel platforms that maybe do different things but slightly cross over a little bit, that would take a bit of the burden off of us if they allowed open communication between separate platforms in an easy and cohesive way. I know it's possible to some degree, but it's certainly not easy.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I would add from our own experience, ease of consumption of APIs for automating at scale, but also remembering, we talked about the criticality of voice services, of the criticality of telephony, and therefore the importance of really robust change operations on the sort of software layer that's driving those marketplaces and those integrations that allow us to keep provisioning all the time, even while there are changes going on underneath.
I think you got to make the relationship and the programs easy to really consume. A lot of times it's I got to have a back office team just to understand how to deal with the relationship, so and then I could have them communicate with my frontline workers that are on the front actually selling the platforms or my channel partners overall. So that communication and making it really easy to transact instead of having to have a whole team and a PhD to figure out their program overall.
Yeah, there's that, and sometimes consistency. You know, the reality is that all of us grew up through the industry with a platform that you were used to, you know, had maybe a 5, 7, 10-year cycle. And in this case, it's sometimes in a SaaS environment, you'll have leadership changes and strategies may change radically and possibly impact channels in ways that they won't understand until sales slow.
I'd be interested, Paul, I think you mentioned that you work with 2 platforms, Matt as well, but both kind of alluded to maybe being open to working with another platform. So I just wonder how you approach adding the platform into the portfolio.
Yeah, it's a good question. So for me, and I've kind of evolved this position a little bit, so alluded to the fact that we've got sort of an open ecosystem and being conformant with everyone was really important to us and was a catalyst for success. And originally I took that stance. Where I am now is the reality is success will only come from truly strategic partnerships, and it's not being beneficial or critical of any platform vendor at all. But you've got to figure out what's right for you. So for example, we're a really big Microsoft house, but I'm not because I don't sell Microsoft licenses. My strategy is all about enablement, providing that facilitation for telephony. So I know exactly what value I provide, and I don't really go beyond that. And I'm quite comfortable with that. Equally with Cisco, we are a strategic partner of Cisco. We absolutely sell the UCaaS application, and we will do the enablement. I'm only a relatively small business, you know, UK sort of and EMEA focused now, to really truly have the capability to provide a truly, you know, world-class technology platform, provisioning and managing OSS platform, and the sales and market GTM to provide value to us both. It's quite resource intensive, and you know I can only back so many horses, and I wouldn't waste my time or the vendor's time where we truly couldn't get into bed with each other and go, there are unique benefits here for both parties, and we are both going to drive real success here. So we have to be a little bit more selective, partly because you know I'm working in a constrained resource envelope to try and drive that. So, and sometimes it is tricky because intuitively I want to be all things to all people at all times.
Yeah, I think demand first, right? So if you have customers or partners that are working with you and like other things you have, and that they want to be able to pull you into another ecosystem. And then the second is, you know, we've heard a few times, one of the catalysts for being able to use collaboration enablement to do geographic expansion is important. And so there's areas where as we move into APAC this next year in a more significant way, we're looking at opportunities to be able to leverage those who have more penetration in that market. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think demand is obviously very important, but also when we at least look at, and let's just the top collaboration platforms with Zoom, Microsoft, and Cisco, if we're looking at an application, can that application work through all 3 so I don't have to have 3 different applications, right? So I kind of that application consolidation to a point. And then the go-to-market strategy. I mean, are they partner-friendly? Do they know how to work with service providers like us overall? Do they have a direct sales model, right? Those type of things to really understand where they fit in that ecosystem with the overall true partnership.
And I would add that we could think about how to develop the market in the future, that we are not coming from the point of view, but also looking into the future, that we innovate and find the new hidden holes where we can find the use for the customers, and also our own value that we can combine it, coming back from just reselling the licenses, bringing own value.
So we've got a slightly unique position in that we don't sell any of these licenses. So we take an agnostic position. We're not selling any Zoom or any Microsoft licenses at all. So for us to add a new partner in is obviously based on customer demand. If a big customer says, hey, plug in this new platform, we're almost definitely going to do it. But also from a strategic perspective, if we see a new contender come into the market offering something genuinely new, it's a fairly light lift for us to do that integration because we don't have to onboard selling all of the SKUs, all of the enablement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can rely on our partners to do that bit, but equally it means we're not taking as much of the revenue from the deal.
Yeah, of course, it's primarily demand-led, and as a global GSI, as I mentioned before, we'll primarily go where our customers are demanding and leading us to go. And so when there's a critical mass, we'll plug into those platforms, and that happened. That's happened over the years with the big ones that we're connected to, the Microsoft, Cisco, Genesys, NICE, and so on. But then there are other cases where we'll use enablement partners ourselves as well, where it's a little bit more niche, where that critical mass hasn't arrived, and that's where we work with folks like New Wave, who can bring some access to other platforms where we don't necessarily have the volume, and we can focus on scaling and quality of the platforms where we see that critical mass today, and we're providing the full suite of managed services and integration and so on.
So I'm going to talk to my Cavell teammates about the phrasing of the question, because this event's about voice and the 3 big collaboration platform, but you're all in more than 4 of them. So I'm going to probably skip over that. But perhaps ask the panelists, what advice would you have to a provider looking to move into their first marketplace? How do they approach that?
Why? Why are you doing it? Be clear on why you're doing it. There's a lot of work involved. There's at least 6 different ways to do this. So be cautious, be careful, reach out for some advice, and ask yourself, why are you doing it?
Yeah, what value are you going to bring, right? These are, by their nature, commodity platforms. Voice is a very specialist, complex area. We've already sort of mentioned that. So it's really about what is your strategy and what is the value and differentiation you can bring. Because fundamentally, if you're looking at it just because the customer's asking for, there's little answer. If a Microsoft customer's asking you, there's 110 other partners who are going to do that. So yeah, it's really about where does it sort of fit for you. And it is a very competitive landscape with, as we all know, I think we've already said, very little differentiation. So I think but coming back, so that was slightly negative, but on the positive, I do think there is opportunity, because the one thing I did just want to sort of touch on is that we talked about the big 3, big 4, how many are there? The opportunity does exist, whereby I absolutely can see that any platform has the capability now to plug in voice. So the logical next step is you've got UCaaS, obviously CCaaS. Think any productivity tool, every CRM system, any tool that you use within your business is actually just sat on your desktop, or you are interacting with as part of your day-to-day work. So we have the ability to plug telephony into pretty much anything. Bring me a system, I can plug into it. That's relatively straightforward. So you can see some sort of opportunities around that. So niche platforms, for example, you could absolutely be a specialist in around there. And to final, I couldn't leave by not saying AI. The reality is, there are native SIP APIs within OpenAI now. They are natively developers looking at how can I embed voice services into an AI consumption model. So you're going, what can you develop? And I haven't got that many ideas, but there are developers globally that will be coming up with thousands.
Yeah, obviously you have to answer the question why you're doing it, but more importantly, I think when you're doing the planning, you need to be bold. If you're going to limp in, you're good chance you're going to fail, and you have to actually take a stance, have an opinion. And sometimes you'll beat your head against the wall until it's bloody, but for God's sakes, there'll be a dent in the wall.
Yeah, when you're going to make that decision, understand the market, but also look at your ICP, right? Your ideal customer profile might be a little bit different depending on what region to go into and depending on the application that you're looking at. So make sure that you understand the market and the opportunity that's there before you go ahead and you make that investment.
And to avoid too much complexity, because you have the people inside, the operations, the sales, the product management, and all the internal people. They have to handle all the different tools and all the different platforms, and it has to be manageable.
I guess I would tend to bring the managed services hat as well to consider what else can you bring apart from voice minutes and calling plans. That's perhaps a perspective that we have from NTT Data, and really, can we provide a full managed service? Can we do all of the integration? Can we add agentic AI to that kind of application platform? So knowing the application really well and the additional value that you can bring to that marketplace, I think is also quite key.
Perfect. Well, we timed that pretty much perfectly. I'd like to say thank you to our panelists for their insights, and thank you all for your attention. I hope you found it useful.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye now.